tonight to honor Doctors Fraser, Liang, Ortiz, and Schneider. The CUNY School of Medicine is also proud that we enroll about 2/3 women, and our senior leadership team is about 80% female. Leaders, pioneers, homemakers, trailblazers, women were essential to the founding of this nation and to the medical profession, and are essential on our path forward in the future. This Women's History Month, take time to recognize the women in medicine who broke boundaries, made discoveries, and changed the way medicine works, as well as the women doing so today. We want to celebrate all the women who are now in positions of power within our government, including Vice President Harris, Avril Haines, who is the daughter of one of the founders of the Sophie Davis program, Dr. Tom Haines, and countless others. This month, we should also celebrate the incredible contributions of countless women who have succeeded despite the clear gender inequities across the world, and particularly in academic medicine. It's an honor to introduce one of the most important women on our leadership team, our own Associate Dean for Curriculum and Assessment, Dr. Rosa Lee, who will introduce each speaker.
Thank you so much, Dean Friedman. That introduction was far too generous, but I'm also honored to be here. This is also one of my favorite events. I was telling the breakout group that the last live sort of gathering of people I recall before COVID hit was last year's Strong Women in Medicine event. So it really is a little bittersweet to see you on screen, but I am so overwhelmed by the turnout. It's really remarkable. So thank you all for joining us. So I think we're going to get right into it. We have a very full program. I'm so excited to introduce all of these, our 4 celebrants today who we've awarded as being Strong Women in Medicine. They're here to inspire us with their words. Our first speaker and Strong Women in Medicine recipient for this year is Dr. Shuling Liang. Dr. Liang completed her studies at Sophie Davis in 1978 and went on to earn her medical degree from New York University School of Medicine in 1980. She matched to a family practice residency at the Swedish Hospital in Seattle, Washington, and graduated in 1983. After 9 years of private practice and 2 years as a residency faculty, Dr. Liang joined Penn State Health Milton S. Hershey's Medical Center in 1994. She's currently professor and associate vice chair for education in the Department of Family Medicine there. She also serves as editor-in-chief for FM Cases, a set of online cases that teach the Society of Teachers for Family Medicine National Clerkship Curriculum in Family Medicine, which is widely used by students and is subscribed by most medical schools, including ours, Dr. Liang. Dr. Liang is actively engaged in medical education, having served as the course director and member of the Curriculum of Medical Education Oversight Committee. Dr. Liang has received grant support from organizations including the Robert Wood Johnson Generalist Initiative, HRSA, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, allowing her to successfully develop and implement innovative curricula. Dr. Liang is a recipient of a number of awards for education and research. Today, Dr. Liang will speak to us with her presentation titled From Ideas to Programs. Welcome, Dr. Liang.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, for those generous and kind introduction. Let me share my slides. So I'm going to talk with you tonight about From Ideas to Program, Journey of Following My Passion. So good evening, Dean Freeman, CUNY leaders, faculty, student, staff, guests, families, and friends. Thank you so much for this great honor and the opportunity to share my journey since graduating from Sophie Davis. I'm having okay, there you go. Well, and happy International Women's Day. So today, I stand before you on the shoulder of giants and want to give credit to those who made my career possible. So many have contributed, but I will call out just a few tonight. Dr. Gellhorn, a visionary with distinguished career, had the foresight to start a brand new program, Sophie Davis Biomedical Education, to address healthcare disparities and racial inequities. Long before these concepts are embraced by others, Sophie Davis had opened doors to opportunities for so many well-deserving students. Dr. Haynes worked tirelessly to instill science knowledge into the naive 18-year-old high school graduates. And Stella, I call her the mother of Sophie Davis, with a huge heart and warm smiles. She's the go-to person if you have a problem to solve or just want to have a hug. Liz was one of the biggest student advocates, always willing to help. Pizer taught social determinant of health long before these concepts were developed. We learned so much about community health and social medicine from Pizer. Their mentoring and role modeling were critical for the students. The magic of believing was transformational. The dedication to diversity and equity and commitment to social mission were inspirational. What I gained at Sophie Davis served as the guiding principle in my career. I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble advancing my slides. So anyway, so since graduating from NYU, from Sophie Davis, I went to NYU and matched into family medicine. The reason family medicine is that I really was really intrigued by the fact that you could provide comprehensive care, where you could see patients of all ages, basically deal with any medical problem that a patient walked to your door. And it's also patient-centered and relationship-based care. That kind of allowed you to develop the trust that you can advocate for your patient, especially for the underserved and vulnerable population. For me, this is also a response to the call for the physician shortage. After graduating from Swedish Family Medicine residency program, I joined Providence Rainier Family Practice for about 9 years. There, I provide comprehensive family medicine, including obstetrics. When the time I left, I had delivered the third baby that I delivered for this woman was actually taller than me, which is, I suppose, not that hard to do. It is actually a very innovative program that it was funded by Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is a joint venture where the hospital and the physician come together to bring healthcare to the underserved communities. And then in 1994, I joined Penn State College of Medicine. My journey to academic medicine began. I was getting involved to training the next generation of physicians, and I felt that actually made a bigger impact than seeing a patient one at a time. I got involved with curricular reform. I truly believe that we need to align training with the healthcare needs of the nation. And I was involved with directorship in many different courses, including the Family Medicine Clerkship, Patient-Centered Medical Home, and other courses. I started to learn how to write grants because I feel with grant funding, it can fund a lot of innovative projects that I want to build. I was also fortunate enough to be selected to be ELAM, which is Executive Leadership in Academic Medicine Fellowship. There, I developed a network of women friends and mentor. And during that time, LCME, which is the accreditation for medical school, identified this one need that all clerkship sites, regardless of where they're located, must have comparable experiences for all students. So with that need, we developed 40 online, excuse me, online self-directing modules to teach the content of the National Clerkship Curriculum for Family Medicine. I led over 150 STFM educator to develop these cases, serving as the founding editor-in-chief for FM cases, which now is called Aquifer Family Medicine. It is actually subscribed by 250 allopathic and osteopathic medical school, PA and MP school. 60,000 registered learners we have, and over 1 million cases were completed each year. The next program that I want to talk to you about that I was engaged with is to develop a 3-year accelerated program to build primary care capacity. There is many organizations has called for education reform to better align training to healthcare needs of the nation, including the American Academy of Family Physicians, the IOM, the AMA, and many other organizations. And that is, if you look around the world, the health of the population is much better when 50% of the physicians are primary care physicians. Yet in the US, only 30% of our physicians are in primary care. And there is a severe shortage of primary care physician presently, and then it's projected to be over 90,000 by 2025. The other thing that we looked at too is student debt. The AAMC had estimated that medical students are graduating with a median of $20,000 in debt. And with this high cost of education, it's really a hardship for our students. And also medical education is getting too long. The average medical graduate is about 8 years older than just a few decades ago. So Penn State College of Medicine launched a 3-year accelerated program in 2014. The first one was developed by me with leading a team in family medicine. So the student complete their medical school in 3 years, followed by 3 years of family medicine residency. We also have one in internal medicine.
Join the meeting.
And also other programs including emergency medicine, neurology, neurosurgery, and orthopedics. There are many benefits to having a 3-year accelerated program. First of all, you can save a year of tuition, but you also get to enter practice a year early. So between the two, the student actually gain at least $270,000 financially. There's also a conditional acceptance to the residency, so there you save $10,000 to $20,000 for interview course, traveling to your residency programs for interviews. And there's also improved efficiency for medical curriculum. With the linkage of medical school to residency, there's also a greater opportunity for mentoring from the faculty. And also allow us to kind of customize the curriculum with the NMI, because if you want an excellent family physician, there are certain things we can do. For example, earlier clinical exposure starting from year 1. And we also embedded a longitudinal integrated clerkship, which really improve continuity with patient and faculty, which is really important in family medicine. This also allows us to address the leaky pipeline. The students are committed to a career from day 1 of medical school. It allows us to mentor them and also nurture them into the discipline, including research, taking them to national presentations, and also incorporate them into the social and holiday events. We did a study using the AAMC graduation questionnaire in the year 2017 and 2018. So we look at the student who graduated from the 3-year program and compare them to the 4-year cohorts for within those medical school and also across all the medical school in the nation. We found that the student felt just as satisfied with the medical education. They felt just as prepared for residency, and there are no higher rate of burnout. And they definitely graduate with less debt. So looking forward, the 3-year Excel program is an emerging solution for addressing the shortage of primary care physicians. It is a disruptive innovation in medical education that could increase the number of US medical students choosing the career in primary care. And it also prepare primary care physicians more efficiently and quickly with lower student debt. I'm going to conclude my talk with a message to our Sophie Davis students. Follow your passion, be innovative, believe in yourself. You too can do great things. The only people who can change the world are the ones who want to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Liang, for that wonderful talk and for sharing your really groundbreaking work with us. I think this really opens the door, as you said, to really addressing healthcare needs in our country, which is exactly the mission of Sophie Davis. So thank you for sharing that. I'm really honored to welcome our next speaker now. So our next Strong Women in Medicine speaker is Dr. Anahi Ortiz. Dr. Ortiz graduated from Sophie Davis in 1981 and received her medical degree from Downstate Medical College in 1983. Dr. Ortiz decided on pediatrics as her focus and completed her residency at St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital in Manhattan. After residency, her career focused on providing care to the underserved communities of New York City and eventually those in Columbus, Ohio. Dr. Ortiz moved to Central Ohio in 1996, where she's worked as a pediatrician at Nationwide Children's Hospital, Westside Community Health Center, and North Community Counseling. She's always been a proponent of volunteering in the community and currently volunteers at Helping Hands Free Clinic, as well as internationally with TIMI Global Healthcare. Inspired by her mother's legacy of advocacy, Dr. Ortiz sought and was appointed to the office of Franklin County Coroner in November of 2014, was elected in 2016, and re-elected to that position in 2020. Since then, she's worked towards streamlining the process for more timely completion of death certificates, had several forms professionally interpreted for families of decedents whose primary language is not English, and works on educating the medical community on completing death certificates. In addition, Dr. Ortiz is currently on the Franklin County Suicide Work Group, which is looking at suicide in Franklin County and attempting to decrease its rate. In March 2015, Dr. Ortiz instituted the Franklin County Drug Overdose Initiative. This group meets monthly to look at the rising rate of drug use and deaths in Franklin County in Central Ohio and how to intervene. In a short period of time, several members of the group have developed concrete plans to create programs which will decrease the number of deaths from overdoses. Dr. Ortiz has nearly 30 years of experience working with high-risk communities in the medical field. She brings this experience and knowledge to the Office of Coroner, where she will be a voice for those who die of violent means and help improve the lives of the Franklin County community. Dr. Ortiz was named the 2020 YWCA Women of Achievement Award in Columbus, Ohio. Today, Dr. Ortiz will speak with us with her presentation titled Finding Your Way. Please welcome Dr. Anahi Ortiz.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here and for listening. And I'm really honored to be among such great women and great gentlemen, actually. So I'm just going to start with a little story before I start the PowerPoint. About 2-3 years ago, I was driving to work. It was about 7:30 in the morning. And I get a phone call. I did have my Bluetooth, my ear things on, right? And a woman gets on the phone and she announces herself and she says, "This is the White House calling." And I said to myself, yeah, right. This has got to be a joke. But I listened and she said, "We have so-and-so on the phone to talk to you." And so a young man gets on the phone and introduces himself. And he says, "Director Carroll from the White House Office of National Drug Policy would like 15 minutes of your time to talk about the addiction crisis going on." And I thought, this cannot be a joke. So I just pulled the car over and I said, "Okay, I'm listening." And next thing I know, Director Carroll gets on the phone. And I have a 15-20-minute conversation with the director of the White House Office for the National Drug Policy. He wanted to hear my ideas on the addiction crisis going on, what was going on in Franklin County, any suggestions I had, and any thoughts. And so I gave it to him. We had a wonderful conversation. And after that, we actually had 3 more conversations. He's called me 3 times more. And during COVID last year, it was around, I think it was April of last year, he actually came to Columbus. And I sat, well, not next to him, but 6 feet apart from him on a panel. On addiction here in our city of Columbus. So after that phone call, I just remember, sitting in the car and thinking, oh my God, I've come such a long way from that young, shy, introverted girl from the Castle Hill projects that went to Sophie Davis. I mean, that was just like my first thought ever. And with that, let me start my presentation if I can share. All right. So, sorry, we are not at the beginning of the PowerPoint. Let's go backwards. I think I'm with Dr. Long. I'm having issues with.
Maybe if you could stop sharing first and then go back, please.
Okay. All right, here we go. I'm sorry about this. Okay, here we go. Finding your way, and I started with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." And that's something that I have taken to heart my entire life in medicine.
You can use the arrow keys.
All right, I got it. So I started my youth, my adolescence. I grew up in the Castle Hill projects of the Bronx. There's 3 of us, single parent household. My father was an alcoholic who left our home when I was about 5 or 6. And from there, I went on to Cardinal Spellman High School, where a very, very compassionate, very smart guidance counselor dissuaded me from going into engineering and instead persuaded me to look at medicine. And the last year, she persuaded me to look at Sophie Davis School of Biomedical Education. I applied, I got in, and I started in 1976. the first course, one of the first courses that we took that year was the community health assessment course. And I have to say that the two gentlemen who made the biggest impact in my life going through school was Pizer Edelsack, who taught the community health assessment course that year, along with Dr. Jack Geiger. Those two gentlemen really made a difference, I think, to many of us in that year and in the years to come. I felt that I learned everything, that I took to heart and that I have used in my practice of medicine. This is from the New York Times, and this unfortunately was, an article written about Dr. Jack Geiger after he died. He believed doctors should use their expertise and moral authority
Join the meeting.
to improve conditions like poverty, hunger, discrimination, joblessness, and lack of education. And when you hear those words, when you've heard Jack Geiger and Pizer Edelsack, you'll understand that we were learning the social determinants of health way before it became, it became the key words that they're using these days. So in 1976, it was called social medicine, and that's what Jack Geiger and Pizer would call it. But by the year 2000, it was called social determinants of health. And I think we're a little bit behind the times here in Columbus, Franklin County, because they didn't start actually looking at social determinants of health till about maybe 5 years ago. From Sophie Davis, I went on to Downstate Medical School and did a pediatric residency at St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital. And from then on, for over 25 years, over 28 years, I've worked in primary care clinics all my life. I worked in Brooklyn and Kings County in the Bronx, Martin Luther King Health Center. I actually did work, I didn't have it down there, but at Metropolitan Hospital. I worked in Central Washington. I went all the way to Washington State and worked with migrants and immigrants there. And then in 1996 came to Columbus and have worked in the primary care clinics here in Columbus, mainly in urban areas. So this is one strong lady, and what she had to say was, you cannot hope to build a better world without improving the individuals. To that end, each of us must work for his own improvement and at the same time share a general responsibility for all humanity, our particular duty being to aid those to whom we think we can be most useful. And this is Marie Curie. So, learning, I remember leaving residency really frightened, because I didn't know, how was I going to learn? How was I going to keep all this information? How was I going to get all the new information out there? How was I going to be the best possible doctor for these poor patients? And what I have learned in the meantime, in all these years, what I've done is go to multiple conferences, used what I call sidebar consults, using, friends who are specialists or people that I've met at conferences and gotten phone numbers for, to call about my patients, to advocate for them, to ask them questions and try and figure out how best to care for my patients. Grand rounds, reading journals, discussion with peers and patients. Patients. They have taught me so much. They have taught me everything I know about medicine in the meantime. I've had a woman who taught me how to best interview someone in trauma. This was a mom who eventually, after much probing and after much interviewing, but slowly and sensitively learned that her youngest had been killed, actually mauled by lions when they were fleeing war-torn Somalia, going to a refugee camp in Kenya. And her other son had suffered an encephalitis from a bite that he received during this journey that they had. And no one, you know, I was fortunate enough to get this history from her, and it made a very big difference in how we cared for this family later on. But I say this because she is just one of many patients that have taught me so many things, and have taught me how to speak to other patients and how to speak to parents and children. So knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And through Aristotle and through all of this, you know, I was trying to become the best physician I could for all my patients. Became a parent, got divorced, became a single parent. And through all of this, I really didn't know who I was, and I was burning out. So what I've learned from that is that you have to really take care of yourself. And how do you take care of yourself? Invest in hobbies, and I don't mean financially. I mean, find the time to invest in hobbies. And I have, I love to travel. I love to do other things, but traveling is my passion. Learning other cultures and meeting other people, it's become a passion of mine. Cooking with my kids have become a passion of mine. Keep your friends and family close. I have 3 children, and I'm either on the phone with them or seeing them if I could, you know, almost on a daily basis. They may not like this because they're all adults, but I really do keep them close. And this a photo here of one of my closest friends here in Columbus, Ohio. She's been my rock. She's been my pillar, and she's been the biggest supporter I have. She's always there. And the other thing I've learned is to have as much fun as possible, even with your patients if you can, because humor is everything. It keeps you young, it keeps your stress levels down, and it's just a wonderful solution to some of your problems. The other thing I learned is to discover your strengths. You know, one thing I've learned too late is that I do have strengths. You know, I never really discovered them or looked at them. But if you want to take a better peek at yours, I've looked at a VIA character strengths assessment. It's actually free. So you can get online, Google it, and look it up. It's pretty accurate. And I have an agency. I'm on the board of Catholic Social Services, and they're actually using the VIA for their staff and supervisors to increase communication and their strategic planning. So that's something I've learned along the way. And lastly, leadership. Each and every one of you will be leaders. As a person in primary care, you will lead your team, or even in specialty care, you will have a team. You'll have a nurse or a medical assistant, a receptionist, a social worker. You'll have a team that you work with, and you are that lead. They will look to you for the answers, especially in a crisis. So leadership is big. And in 2014, as was mentioned, I was appointed to the office of coroner here in Ohio. You need to be a physician in good standing to be the coroner, and I was appointed and then elected. And during this whole period of time, I have learned so many lessons on leadership. I thought I knew everything by the time I got here, but it's been a real journey. And I've been very grateful to be in this position. I've been able to advocate. Right now, my patients are the decedents, and they are the decedents who have died of homicides, of suicides, of overdoses, of motor vehicle collisions, etc. And I advocate for them every day, if not every week or every other day. I'm out there speaking to the public. I'm out there being interviewed. Currently, I do a lot of work with addiction. and advocating for those who have died by overdose, because I feel that they are an underserved community. And currently in my county, we're seeing about a 40% rise in homicides. And I've recently started advocating for the victims and the families and friends of those who have died by homicide. I think more can be done in our county for those victims and for those families to prevent. And so a lot of the work I do is advocacy and also prevention. So with that, I'm going to end with, I highly respect this person. She's someone I really look up to, Chief Justice Sonia Sotomayor. And she said, "I am an ordinary person who has been blessed with extraordinary opportunities and experiences. And I wish for all of you that you may have extraordinary opportunities and extraordinary experiences." Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ortiz, for sharing your life experiences and life lessons with us. I think all of us are profoundly struck by your compassionate advocacy and your leadership. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Can you please stop sharing the PowerPoint?
Right, I'm trying to get out and it's frozen. I think I'm having some.
You have to cancel that first, and then you
It's
can
okay. Stop sharing. Okay. So our next speaker, our next celebrated strong woman in medicine this evening is Dr. Rosalind Schneider. Dr. Schneider attended Forest Hills High School in Queens and graduated from Sophie Davis in 1984. She received her MD degree from Mount Sinai School of Medicine in 1986 and later pursued and received a Master of Science degree in Pharmaceutical Medicine from Hibernia College. She completed her residency and fellowship training at Beth Israel Medical Center, where she became board certified in internal medicine, pulmonology, and critical care. Dr. Schneider is a fellow at both the American College of Physicians and the American College of Chest Physicians, where she served on the Ethics Committee and the Clinical Research Network. Dr. Schneider is a retired clinical professor of medicine at Albert Einstein College of Medicine and was a program director for the Fellowship in Pulmonary and Critical Care Medicine, the Residency in Internal Medicine, and assistant chair of the Department of Medicine there. She joined Pfizer in 2006 and grew into the Global Patient Affairs lead within the Chief Medical Office. In this role, Dr. Schneider drove patient centricity and integration of the voice of the patient community throughout the life cycles of medicines and their development. She also held other leadership roles in medical strategy, medical affairs, and medicine development. Dr. Schneider is currently Vice President of Scientific, Medical, and Patient Affairs at Theravance Biopharma, a biopharmaceutical company focused on the discovery, development, and commercialization of organ-selective medicines. Invited to join the Sophie Davis Alumni Community Board in 2016, she also served as the 2018 White Coat Ceremony keynote speaker for our current M3 class, which graduates in 2022, and as a major donor to the Student Opportunities Fund. Most recently, she was honored by the American Lung Association as the New Jersey 2020 Lung Force Walk honoree. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rosalind Schneider, who will speak to us today. Her presentation is titled Being a Woman in Medicine. Welcome, Dr. Schneider.
Thank you so much, Dean Lee, and thank you everybody for being here. It's truly an incredible honor to be here with fellow classmates, students, deans, and to think back at this journey that we've all taken. So I will share my screen and hopefully this will work. Is it working? Okay. So just one thing to say before I get started is that the views that I'm expressing here tonight are my own, and they don't necessarily reflect the views of my current employer, any of my former employers, CUNY School of Medicine, or basically any other organization with whom I've been associated. And as you've heard, I've had distinct chapters of my career in my professional life after I left Sophie Davis. And I'm very grateful for each one, because each one has been a way for me to learn from the previous chapter and build on that for the next one. The first one in practice, graduate medical education and hospital administration at, interestingly, what's now Mount Sinai Beth Israel on the Lower East Side of New York. And through its academic and corporate journey, we'll say, from first Mount Sinai to Albert Einstein and now back again to Mount Sinai. The second chapter of my career was, as you've heard, in and has been in the biopharmaceutical industry. I first working at Pfizer in various roles, then doing some independent consulting of similar work in patient affairs and trying to involve patients more meaningfully across the way that we develop medicines and devices. And now since October, in this exciting role with a wonderful team at Theravance Biopharma. So each chapter, as I said, is building on the last in one way or another. And I think we've already been hearing tonight that there are multiple paths. As you're thinking about your career, it seems very linear and that there's only one path to service, but there really are many paths to service. And that's something for us to search within ourselves, and something that I've done over my career. The service and the mission is the same, which is the mission of healing. And that's something that was nurtured in a very meaningful way on Convent Avenue at Sophie Davis. So when Margaret told me about this award and talked to me about it, she asked me to think about what it's been like to be a woman in medicine. So I'll share a little bit about some of my thoughts. She also asked me to think about how other social identities that I have influenced my career in medicine. So I'll say when I started my career, I was a woman in a male-dominated profession of medicine in an even more male-dominated field of pulmonary and critical care medicine. And there's no question, there were clear gender, ethnic, and socioeconomic disparities in the care patients received, and also in their associated health outcomes. Professionally, I understood there to be a ladder. And that was a ladder in practice and academia. And I would say the landscape for women in medicine and in medical academic leadership had obvious differences in how women and men advanced on that ladder. And there even were questions about whether or not we as women should be on that ladder. And in addition, my identity as a first-generation American Jewish woman has been a strong influence on my career. My parents came to this country separately, each to escape religious or political persecution, in search of freedom, new opportunities, and in the hope that their freedom that they would have here would allow them and their future children to have a better life and their children to have an education. So being on this ladder didn't really seem to be an option for me. It was an obligation and a responsibility based on what my parents had been through. It was something where I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I was always told that nothing good is easy. And you also don't get to complain when your parents have been through what my parents have been through. I remember growing up, if there was even a hint of complaint of homework or the everyday challenges, it would invariably lead to a conversation about my father with his family being exiled from Poland to Siberia and stealing potatoes so that his family could eat. And then When that was done, then we would talk about my mother's experience, where she had been separated from her family in Budapest so that she could hide during the Holocaust, pretending to be a Christian orphan in a convent for at least a year so that she could avoid the fate that her grandparents suffered dying in Auschwitz. And if that wasn't enough to talk about of why my life was so good and why I would never have anything to complain about, my mom would also talk to me about leaving then later in 1956 during the Hungarian Revolution, when she was running across from Hungary and running across the border into Austria to sleep outside of the United States Embassy to be able to escape to the United States. So again, early on, I learned not to take anything for granted and also to commit to that responsibility that I had to serve the community and to succeed and to help others around me succeed in a way that was meaningful to them. So if we go back to the ladder metaphor, to be clear, the ladder is not a straight ladder for anyone, men or women. But it does seem as if, or at least it did seem as if, there was a different shape of the ladder for men and women. And as women, again, we were welcomed in medicine, encouraged, supported to advance, although generally compensated at a lower scale than men, and that's true today. But then we were expected, or at least encouraged, to plateau or to slow down in order to fit with somebody else's view or society's view of good wife, good mother, good daughter. Because after all, we were women, so we wanted to have families, or we had families, as if our male counterparts did not have families. And wouldn't that be sad if they didn't? And there were a lot of women in practice, academically also, at the instructor and assistant professor rank, but far fewer who were represented at the associate or full professor rank, far fewer who were heading clinical or medical school departments, and unlike at CUNY School of Medicine, not more than a handful that I remember when I was early in my practice who were deans at medical schools. And then regarding those academic promotions, generally it was the chair of the department at a hospital who had to put up and recommend and support someone within the department, and I would say within his department, very deliberately, for consideration for that academic promotion. And I was fortunate to sit on a promotions committee to the associate level from the assistant professor rank. And I often saw men being put up for promotion by their chairs and considered much earlier and with fewer qualifications than the women who were being proposed. And I decided I wasn't going to wait to be told that it was my turn. And I was proactive in asking our chair of medicine to put me up for promotion when I knew that it was the earliest time I could be put up for promotion and when I believed that I had the qualifications to have that promotion. And he did, in fact, fully support that promotion, as did others, so that I received it. I did have to ask, though, and I think that is one thing I've learned over time, which is we should know when we think it might be our turn and not wait for somebody to tap us on the shoulder. I was driven to reshape the ladder because I had that hope and that thought of possibility that my parents had instilled in me. And I knew that that ladder had to fit my life goals. And I knew that I wasn't planning on choosing between a profession and a family, but instead that I was going to be the best that I could at each of those. And I knew I wouldn't be perfect, far from it in either one, but I would do my best and that would just have to be enough. And to reshape that ladder from this shape to this shape And to know which wall I even want to rest it against, I knew that I would have to find examples from others and have support from others. And that was really important in my life. So family, as you've already heard, was very important to me. My parents and my sister were my cheering section, even from the time of encouraging my application to Sophie Davis, when I was not encouraged in my high school to apply. The communities at school, through my residency, fellowship, faculty, and colleagues in industry, and professional organizations were where I connected with other women as examples, and also men who were allies. And I appreciate all the men who are here today, because we need to lean on each other as women. We also need men who are enlightened and can be in our lives again as allies. And I'm very fortunate to have found them throughout my life and this career journey. So here I am with my boyfriend on the day we met in 1977 at a bat mitzvah. And today he is not only my husband and the love of my life, but he is absolutely an equal partner in every aspect of our family life. And he has been shaping that ladder and extending the ladder with me every day since that day in 1977. So I have had to learn about toning down my guilt that I'd be lying if I said I didn't have along this journey, for when I would miss something at my daughter's school. For whatever reason, the 5th grade poetry contest sticks in my head that I missed. But it's my daughter who would often reassure me that I'm enough and that what I do is something that she enjoys that I do. And I think she was about 11 when she swiped my phone from me and changed my screensaver to something with a quote that she had done as a screenshot that said, "Distance is only a test to see how far love can travel." And she said, just stop stressing over it if you have to travel or if you have to be on call. She said, I know what you do is important and that you're gonna come home, and I'm really glad you do what you do. And that was really important to me. And Brooke, now 24, is forging her own path in business. And she's always known that she's my inspiration every single day. Professional organizations that we've talked about have been important in my professional development, in deliberately building my network and finding role models, mentors, and sponsors. And those aren't the same. The mentors were important to me to have safe people, safe spaces to be able to bounce around ideas. But it's the sponsors we don't have enough of in our careers often. Sponsors are people who we respect, but who will speak up on our behalf when we're not in the room and think of us for those opportunities and make us think about stretching our possibilities. I was very fortunate to have a number of sponsors in my career. And here too, it's a responsibility and obligation, not something that I feel is optional, that since that was so important in my career, I feel that I am here to mentor and sponsor others, and feel very fortunate that I've gotten to do that along my career. And I've gotten so much from it also. It's the joy and what I learned from my mentees, but it's also seeing them succeed in ways that are meaningful to them. Also, professional organizations created, and I was talking at our small group before we came into this session with the group of students who's active in AMSA, that those organizations create the opportunity for community, for education, but also to get involved, to take an active role in leadership, to volunteer. And when I transitioned to industry, I remained active in the medical organizations that I had been a part of, such as American College of Physicians and CHEST, But then I also became very involved in industry associations, such as the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association, where I then served on their corporate board. But back to Sophie Davis, where I think you'll hear a familiar theme, that Sophie Davis absolutely had a central role in shaping the physician that I've become. It was a small community of diverse students, passionate faculty, committed to changing the health situation of underserved communities. And the Community Health and Social Medicine course with Pizer on the Lower East Side was in particular a course that gave me a close-up view. And interestingly, it was a view of the Lower East Side that was very different than the view I had as a child there, and where my father had a store on Orchard Street for probably 40 years. It was a very different view to walk the neighborhood and see what was within that neighborhood that could potentially affect the life and the health of the people who lived on the Lower East Side. And I would say that focus on culture and understanding the needs of communities, understanding the root causes of problems, and the broader definition of health, not merely the absence of disease. That's something that, again, was really nurtured for me at Sophie Davis. And that's something that I've carried as a thread throughout my clinical, academic, and industry chapter of my career. And I'd say, thinking back to the ICU and at the bedside of patients in the hospital, those lessons helped me sort of to work through with patients and their families what we could do based on even then the science and technology that we had then, and distinguish that from what we should do based on what people wanted for themselves, what they wanted in their lives and how they lived their lives, because they often were not the same thing. And in my teaching, I'll just call attention to one example of how important it is to see beyond our own culture. And it came during a conversation with one of our pulmonary critical care fellows when I was program director, and a faculty member was presenting, and he recited a phrase that I'm sure most of us have heard, and it's, when you hear hoofbeats, think horses and not zebras. So my fellow, who was originally from Uganda, asked, but why? Because he was much more accustomed growing up to seeing zebras than horses. And there weren't that many horses on the Lower East Side where we were practicing. So, think about that, but also similarly, think about the zebra, which is a symbol of the community of people who have rare diseases. And it's people who have rare diseases who are often misdiagnosed for years or decades, because we are in many ways taught to think about horses and not zebras, even though if we think about the individual people and the diseases that they're living with, there are 6,000 known rare diseases and over 300 million people who are affected. So we have to just change our framing in the way that we're thinking about these things. And I am absolutely certain that my education foundation from Sophie Davis has influenced why I've chosen to focus on patient centricity, and why in industry I've been creating the roles to advance that. It's a passion that's driven my career and defines me today, and that is to transform research and healthcare through human-centered design. And that is to very intentionally include patients and their care partners in more meaningful ways in all of the decisions that may affect them. And that's to advance shared decision-making, whether it's at the bedside, in the clinic, in the business of healthcare, or in healthcare policy, to align what we do in healthcare with what our stakeholders, especially patients, need and want. And this means something in particular in the biopharmaceutical industry, where there are key points along the way of taking something from an idea, from a concept, all the way to becoming a medicine, a vaccine, or a device. And there's a process that's very complicated to go through research and translational processes to the development and approval before it's commercialized and ever reaches a patient. And the timeline then doesn't end when these medicines first reach patients, but it doesn't end until that medicine is no longer available anywhere in the world for anyone. So we have to think about what that means for people all along that line. And human-centered design means including people, patients, as well as the more traditional experts, the doctors, the nurses, PAs, statisticians, and the like, and including patients as experts so that they can better inform those key points in that life cycle, so that at the end of it, and for as long as it's available, those are accessible and those serve people in ways that matter to them. So in closing, please permit me to salute the many women who are strong women who came before us, and this is my mom. And with my mom and my daughter in this photo to share my belief that we have a long way to go. We have a lot more to do toward gender equity and for gender equity for patients, gender equity within the health professions. But I'm very hopeful. I'm hopeful as we're making progress from generation to generation. So thank you so much again.
And thank you, Dr. Schneider, for that incredible talk. Thank you also for sharing your family's experiences with us. I think that was incredibly moving and inspiring. And it's amazing to see how you've become a trailblazer using a very humanistic, Sophie Davis-centered approach to biopharmaceuticals. And that's just incredible. So thank you. So we are down to our last speaker now. So I am really thrilled to present our final Strong Women in Medicine speaker for this evening, and that is Dr. Marilyn Fraser. Dr. Fraser is the Chief Executive Officer at the Arthur Ashe Institute for Urban Health. She's a research associate professor in the Department of Medicine at CUNY Downstate Medical Center and the co-director of the Brooklyn Health Disparities Center. Previously, as Deputy Director and Associate Director for Research and Training, Dr. Fraser managed the Institute's community outreach and research programs. Dr. Fraser is a co-leader of an investigative research team supported by several NIH and CDC grants, helped develop behavioral health intervention models and training curricula for the Arthur Ashe Institute's award-winning Black Pearls and Different Fades of Health programs. The Institute's community outreach programs prepare hairstylists and barbers to educate their clients about various health topics, including breast, prostate, and colorectal cancer, cardiovascular disease, and HIV/AIDS risk reduction. She's also served as the co-PI in conducting the Institute's Access Project to increase access to health and social services for formerly incarcerated individuals in Brooklyn. Guyanese-born Dr. Fraser is a graduate of the Spartan Health Sciences University School of Medicine in St. Lucia and did her medical training in the West Indies, Mexico, and the United States. She's received numerous awards, including the Health Award from the New York State Association of Black and Puerto Rican Legislators and the prestigious Fulbright Research Specialist Award to develop and implement a climate change and public health internship program for secondary school students in Trinidad and Tobago. She was also the recipient of the Innovator Award from the Bedford-Stuyvesant Family Health Center, the Community Award from the Nurses Association of the Counties of Long Island, as well as an Extraordinary Woman of Downstate recognition. She was also nominated to serve on the nationally acclaimed Clinical and Translational Science Award Community Engagement Domain Task Force. Most recently, Dr. Fraser was honored as a Power Woman in Brooklyn and received the Special Health Award. She was also honored as the winner of the 2019 Cranes Heritage Healthcare Leadership Award. Dr. Fraser regularly presents her work at scientific meetings, nationally and internationally, and is a co-author on several publications and a book chapter. So please welcome me in introducing and presenting Dr. Marilyn Fraser, who will speak with us about appreciating the journey. Welcome, Dr. Fraser.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this special award. Oftentimes it's said that to be awarded something from those that are from your own profession really means a lot. And this afternoon and this evening, I'm really appreciative of that. And to be among such a wonderful group of honorees as those that have spoken and those that have forged a way in the path forward for many of us, and they've been able to realize their inner strength. I have a connection to Sophie Davis, although I know I wasn't a graduate of Sophie Davis program, but one of my closest friends is an alum of the Sophie Davis program, as well as I tell the story that I'm not sure what happened with my application when I applied to Sophie Davis, but I remember years ago that my transcript got lost in some drawer somewhere, but that's a long story. Nevertheless, tonight I want to talk to you about appreciating the journey, and I want you to appreciate this journey. And to start off, I want to just start off with this quote from Arthur Ashe. And he said, to achieve greatness, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And I hope that that's something that our students would take to heart, that to achieve greatness, you need to start where you are, use the resources that you have, and do whatever you can to make sure that things are better than when you started. This is who I am in a nutshell. In terms of background, I've worked at the Arthur Ashe Institute for 20 years. I've served, as you heard, in various capacities at the Institute. One of the things that I'm really happy about was being able to give back in terms of having a Fulbright research specialist scholarship. In terms of my career interest, not necessarily in this order, I'm very much interested in preventive medicine, cardiovascular disease, because cardiovascular disease, sometimes the risk factors transcends a lot of other diseases. Global health, because we're connected as a country, as the world, as we saw with COVID-19, that it's not just Brooklyn, it's not just Queens, it's not just the United States, it's other countries as well. And then community-based research. On a personal note, things that are very important to me, family, my faith is very important to me. I take that seriously. In terms of hobbies, I was telling the students I enjoy cooking, and that's something that helps me to keep the balance, so to speak. Reading, badminton, music, traveling. Badminton, I don't remember the last time I played it, but I really do enjoy it. I'm of Caribbean descent. I'm really proud of my Guyanese heritage. The falls that you see on the side of your screen on the right-hand side, that's Kaieteur Falls. It's in Guyana. It has the longest single drop of any rainfall and any waterfalls. And in terms of key characteristics, I always think that I'm very dedicated and I'm very optimistic. So today I want to go through somewhat of a journey with you. I'll talk a little bit about my childhood. I'll talk a little bit about how I got to this place and those that have influenced me, and also I'll talk to you about the Arthur Ashe Institute and what we do. In terms of my childhood, I don't remember when the first picture was taken. I must have been about 2 because my brother was 1 at that time. But these are the different things that mattered a lot to me when I was growing up. And I think that they helped to shape who I was as someone that was very curious. And as the other picture on the side shows, yeah, someone that was very curious, someone that was shy as well. The first picture of the books, the medical books, those were my parents' books. I enjoyed reading nursing books. My parents were both nurses. They're retired now. I enjoyed reading their books. I read through the pictures. I looked at everything to the point at one time I used to have headaches, migraines. And I remembered that knowing that if you had a brain tumor, you would have headaches that increase in intensity during the day. You will feel nauseated. And when my mom took me to the doctor, I said, "Are you sure I don't have a brain tumor? Because these are the symptoms I'm experiencing." And I must have been about 12 at that time, but because I read the different diagnoses in the books, that's what I thought I had. So that was one thing. You see the mortar and the pestle. So my dad was a dispenser in Guyana. That's somewhat of a small town doctor. and he would mix medicines. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to do the pharmacy kind of thing. And what he would also do suture cuts and all those kinds of things. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do some combination of that, to be a pharmacist and a surgeon, something to that effect. So I said I wanted to be a doctor. The other thing was the sense of community that was instilled in me throughout the years that my parents instilled in me. My mom would oftentimes put things together. She would bake and she would put little bags and give it to us to give out to the community and give out to people that might not have been as fortunate as we were. And then finally, our faith. So I was churched a lot. I went to church with my grandmother. I went to church with my parents, and that was a key, those are the things that were key to my upbringing. So from the medical books that I read to giving things and giving back to the community, all of those instill a sense of community in me. And I always knew that I wanted to go into medicine. But then there are times that you get to crossroads in your life and you don't know where you want to be or where you want to go. And the journey, as we mentioned, is not always straight. It may go zigzag and different things may happen. And I had crossroads after high school, crossroad after college, and crossroads after medical school, and thinking, okay, what do I do now? Where do I go? And then there are options that come up, and I really acknowledge and recognize that things happen for a reason, and nothing just happens like that. And I also believe that all things work together for my good. So in not knowing where to go after having an MD degree and figuring out what do I want to do, I ended up going to the Arthur Ashe Institute. And someone directed me to the Institute, and they were doing some work around breast cancer and some work around primarily working with hair salon stylists. And just to tell you a little bit about the Arthur Ashe Institute. So the Institute was founded by Arthur Ashe just before he passed away. And for the younger people in our group, they may not remember or know that Arthur Ashe was a tennis champion. He's the only African-American male tennis champion to win the US Open, the Australian Open, and Wimbledon. And he founded the Arthur Ashe Institute at SUNY Downstate Health Sciences University in Brooklyn. And although I never met Arthur, he was very much concerned about health inequities and going out into the community and training others about health and doing health promotion, but also training the next generation of healthcare professionals of color. And that's something that we continue to this day because we have people and we have a wonderful staff that keeps us at our toes and our wonderful board to make sure that we are fulfilling the mission of the Institute. So when I talk about non-traditional settings, we go into beauty salons, we go into barbershops, we develop healthcare curriculum and train barbers and stylists so that they can be the ones that share the message and be the messengers for their customers. And as we mentioned, as some of my fellow honorees mentioned, that sometimes it's not the doctor, it's the lay people that are trusted. And that's why we make sure that we are incorporating those health messages throughout with trusted people and trusted messengers that others would listen to. And in doing so, making sure that people are also linked to services within the communities. So that's one of our major programs is our community-based initiative. And the other program is training the next generation of healthcare professionals. And we do that through our STEM education program, trying to build a pipeline because remember Dr. Leon mentioned a leaky pipeline. And we're trying to make sure that we're building a pipeline from middle school through high school and that students will go on to college and participate with us as alumni and then hopefully come back into the communities that they're from and serve within those communities. What you're looking here is this is a white coat ceremony that we have for the students that come in the 3-year after school science enrichment program. They come into the 10th grade and they're with us until through the 12th grade. And some of our students have attended Sophie Davis. I think we are kind of like creating a pipeline to Sophie Davis somewhat. And I'm really happy about that our students are going here. And one of the things that we want to make sure that we're teaching them is about health and the social issues and about culture and all those different things that impact health. And health not being just a mere absence of disease. So when we're talking to them, we want them to know about the social determinants of health. Remember, Dr. Ortiz spoke about that. Dr. Schneider, you spoke about that. The social determinants of health, that those issues that impact our health, whether it's racism or discrimination, or whether it's food insecurity or not having stable income, or in the environmental issues that affect us, educational opportunities, housing. And these things were really highlighted in COVID within the past year, that we really came to realize that. And we know that things are not equal, and we know that things are not equitable. And this is a slide I always like showing, because sometimes we think that to fix things, we need for them to be equal. And we know if things are equal, everyone is given the same box as you see in it here, but they cannot see the playing field, right? So how do you make it equitable so that the person that's the shortest is able to see? So you put more boxes on. But the reality of it is that the people that may be able to see and the people that may be able to have those resources oftentimes have so much, and the ones that do not, the ones that need it most, do not have it. And so those are things that we want to make sure that our communities know about, and we want to make sure that our students understand as they're going into the profession, as they're thinking about being women in medicine. We know that these are things that they have to think about as well. And how do we change the dynamics to make sure that things are more equitable, right, within our communities? We were asked to talk a little bit about being a woman in medicine, and my other fellow honorees, they have spoken about this in terms of balance. Women oftentimes have to balance career and family, and they're the ones that are oftentimes the caretakers, and that's something that is needed. We know that things are not equitable. We know that men would make more than women do, and you may be doing the same thing. Mentoring is something that is important, especially as a woman in medicine, having that person that is a mentor and being true to yourself. So when you show up, who do you show up as? So for me, I know I'm an immigrant woman, I'm a Black woman, and that's what I bring to the table. And realizing who you are, and also realizing that you've gotten here because you have been on the shoulders of others that came before you, and you want to advocate for those that are coming, advocate for yourself, but also advocating for those that are coming after you. One of the things that I know I would not have gotten to where I am without people that were influential. And so in honor of Women's History Month and International Women's Day, I want to just point out some of those influential women in my life. So the first picture is my great aunt, my mom's aunt. She's a single woman. She came to live with us probably the day that I got out of the hospital, as the day I was born and I went home from the hospital. And her name is Jem, was Jem. And one of the things I learned a lot of my core values from her. So integrity and honesty and respect. And those are things that she instilled in me. And those are things that helped to shape who I am. The second picture is Mrs. Cromwell, who was my preschool teacher. And that's me. Yes, I was a yellow duck. And this was my poem that I had to state, that I was a yellow duck. And I really like this picture because it tells me it reminds me of community. So my aunt, my great aunt probably went to the store with my mom and got the material. My grandmother made the outfit for me. My dad took paint and yellow paint and painted my flip-flops. And so I think about this as all community. I think about people that stood behind me to help me, to promote me, and to help me to be who I am today. And of course, I will be remiss without, one of the greatest women that has been in my life and been most influential is my mom, Doris Fraser. And she has taught me faith, and she's taught me determination, and she's taught me resiliency. And all of these things these are all the little things that over the course of time that has helped to shape who I am, and has helped to shape me along the journey that I have taken, and the journey that when I started out, I never thought that this would have been the journey, but this is a journey that I've been on. And throughout it, I want to, to make you think about enjoying it, right? Because our journeys may all be different. You've heard from my fellow honorees, our journeys are so varied and so different, and it's not a straight line. But whether it's a straight line for you, or whether it's curved, or whether it goes up and down some hills and valleys, regardless of what it is, you want to forge your own path. You want to make sure that you appreciate this journey, because it goes by quite quickly. It does go by quite quickly. And so finally, I want to leave you with this quote, another quote from Arthur Ashe, that he says, "I know I could never forgive myself if I elected to live without humane purpose, without trying to help the poor and unfortunate, without recognizing that perhaps the purest joy in life comes with trying to help others." And that's what we should be doing. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Fraser, for that amazing talk. I can't believe, I don't know what happened to your application at Sophie Davis either, but really clearly you've built a career upon the mission, and you really have inspired me and all of us by really building a career around health equity. And clearly you have made such an impact on our whole community of New York City. So thank you for your words and for sharing your journey with us. Thanks to all of our amazing honorees for this evening's event. So now I'm going to turn it back over to the students. We have a question and answer session to our honorees, hosted by student members of AMWA, the American Medical Women's Association Student Chapter Board, who've done an incredible job in working with the alumni office to put together today's event. So thank you so much. So we have 4 students who will be leading the Q&A session, and they are Ivy Raman, Rochelle Montreux, Layla Morgan, and Udeme Udom.
Thank you for the introduction, Dean Lee. So my name is Ivy Rahman. I'm the president of the American Medical Women's Association at CCNY. So the first question that we had for the speakers tonight is to just please share a moment that you felt proud to be a woman in medicine. And any one of the speakers is free to answer the question first.
I'll just speak up really quickly. I think my proudest moment was when I went across the stage and downstate, and my mom, who's now deceased, my brother and my sister and my uncle and my aunt were there to watch me cross that stage and receive my medical diploma. First person in my family to receive a medical diploma, first doctor in the family. So for me, that was the crowning moment.
I guess I could share my two. There are many to choose from, but this one could be one. So I was the founding editor-in-chief in developing these FM cases. And that took I think over a decade to get it accomplished. And the Society of Teacher of Family Medicine had recognized us, our team, and giving us the Innovation Award for that year. So that was really a proud moment that our team was standing on the stage, kind of sharing with the crowd of what we accomplished and to be recognized.
Yeah, I think if I had to say the proudest moment would be being in the community and people asking about certain questions that they wouldn't normally ask their doctors, and asking me those questions and having the understanding to talk to them about it, and bringing culture into play as well, so that you could break things down. One of the things that I often say, that we learn this other language in medical school. We're trained to learn a new language that we can only use amongst ourselves. And then when we go back to our patients, we have to go back and break it down so that everyone could understand. But I think just having the ability to do that is something that is rewarding.
Like you, there are so many moments, but maybe for me, it's not a moment. It's a conversation that I had with my mom's uncle to tell him that I got into Sophie Davis and how excited I was. And he was my mom's uncle who sort of guided my mom when she got to America, because he was a teacher and he was guiding my mom about schools and education for children. And it turned out that he was very sick at the time. He didn't know what was going on. And it was some mysterious diarrheal illness that he was noticing among his friends who were gay. And it was something where, of course, later on, we all knew this was advanced HIV infection. And then to work in that field and over time see that now become a more chronic disease because of collaboration and activism on the part of the patient community. That's something that makes me very proud.
Thank you for all of your answers. They're very inspiring, actually, that you had most of your proudest moments after you got through school, or even just when you got into school. It was one of the most proudest moments. I'd like to open the next question to one of our other eBoard members, Anika.
Yeah, hi, my name is Anika Azam, and I'm the secretary of the graduate chapter of American Medical Women's Association. I feel like my medical school experience has become easier after I found my mentor, who's now guiding me through my important decisions in medical school. So here's my question. Can you describe your relationship with an important mentor and share how this impacted your medical journey and provided structure to your professional goals?
I'll share one. And that was when I was already in industry and I was applying for a role that was to be a chief of staff in medicine development across a large part of the business. And the person who became my boss was a wonderful mentor and continues to be a sponsor for me today. When we were talking about what the role should be, he was mentoring me in saying, I never had a chief of staff before. I'm not really sure what a chief of staff is supposed to do here, but I know what you bring and figure out where you can add value and do that. And I'll work with you to support you to do that. And he divided my role and said, a third of this role is to know what every member of our leadership does in a way that you can represent any of us or the whole team at any time to the external world or the internal world at the company. And then the second part, which was equally important, was to figure out how to make the weave through the functional expertise that each group had so that we can all be one team of working together. And then he said the third part, which is something that I would have to work through with him, is my personal development. And that there too, I should figure out what it is I want to do, and he will support my journey to getting there. And that we would check in from time to time. So that was something that, again, it started when he was my boss, but including and up to, getting to my current role, he is somebody that I call for advice and to say a good word for me.
Yeah, I have a very similar situation where the person who hired me actually is one of my greatest mentor. So when he hired me, I was just starting out at Penn State, and he said, well, you're going to be the clerkship director for the FAMAS and clerkship. And I said, okay. I didn't even know what I'm getting into. But he was very careful in guiding me, got me into, he said, you must attend Society Teacher of FAMAS and all the annual meetings because they say they're the best meeting that there is, and they are indeed correct because I have found my professional home there. I met collaborator, I met mentors, I met friends, and so through the years, it really have helped me, you know, foster my career growth. And when I first started it, I also said to him, I said, okay, well, I could do this, but I'm not writing grants. And he didn't push me. You know, is a very, very much of a person oriented kind of approach. So it's based on what I need, but not what he wants from me. But then he put me on grants and I got into it and I say, wow, I realized the power of having external funding that you could actually then build the program you want to build, because if you don't have money, you can't do very much. So then I learned to write grants, and he continued to kind of support me through my career that way. Even after I retire, you know, I was still able to stay in contact with him, and kind of, he's very good at listening, and also every now and then he'll throw me a couple of wisdom that is right on. So yeah, he would be one of my mentor that I always remember.
I'll just really quick. Throughout the years, you know, I pretty much worked solitary, you know, medical clinics, leadership, just little, you know, the little teams. And I can't say I had one person as mentor. I think I have to say that currently in my role as leader of an agency, as a political office, I think that's where I really needed the mentors, because it's a field that I totally had no background in, and kind of just thrown in there. And I'm working with, you know, two heads of agencies, both of them involved in mental health of the community. And, you know, I especially from one, it's a gentleman actually, but he's been so supportive, has listened to me, and what, you know, he just really boosts up, you know, when you're not sure what you're doing or whatever, boosts up my, you know, my strengths, saying I have it, you know, kind of a cheerleader, almost more of a cheerleader than mentor. But I think the main thing he has done for me that I have to say for everyone else, especially now, especially looking at what's going on, is mental health is so important. And that's what he and Rachel have, you know, really instilled in me, is that mental health is so important, especially as a leader, especially as head of anything. You're going to be stressed, and stress is coming from your home life, you know, if you have children and a husband, and from your work. And if you're in politics, you know, it gets thrown at you through political parties and other, you know, people with varying different views. And so the one thing you have to remember is to keep that mental health strong, because without it, it'll be difficult to go on and make the wisest of decisions. So I have to say it's the two people in Columbus here who have helped me in terms of mental health and making sure that that is solid.
Thank you. Oh, Dr. Fraser, go. Sorry.
No, I just would echo what everyone said, and making sure that you have mentors, because that's important all throughout the different parts in different phases in your careers too. And not necessarily just having one. There are mentors that may serve in different phases, right? And for different purposes. Sometimes you may have an interest that your primary mentor may not be the expert on that, and then you may need to go and find someone else to lead you along the way, but it's so important to have that.
Thank you for sharing your experiences. It is wonderful to hear that you have such amazing mentors. Okay, so the next question will be asked by another of our e-board members, Layla.
Hello everyone, my name is Layla Morgan and I'm the secretary of the undergraduate chapter of the American Medical Women's Association. This will be the last question for the night, and the question that I have is, how did you navigate residency as a woman? And for those of you in which this can apply, when did you start thinking about marriage and starting a family?
So I have my life planned out, like I told you. So I probably thought of okay, residency will be when so I was going to graduate early from high school, then go into medical school, and everything got turned upside down. So I had a path that I thought about early on in my life as a kid, and getting married after residency, and then having kids after this, and doing all that stuff, and that none of that happened. And so in terms of, I thought about it earlier, but what I would caution you to do is like really not plan things out the way that like I did, but just make sure that you are taking your time one step at a time, and finding balance in what you're doing. You know, finding the balance. You've heard about just finding the various things that are outside of medicine and medical books and all of those kinds of things. Just make sure you find some time for yourself so that you can have balance, because oftentimes as women, we do not do that. And we do need to have this self-care, and we really need to take care of ourselves.
I agree. So you saw the beginning of the story. So 1984 wasn't only when I graduated from Sophie Davis, but it's also in the summer between Sophie Davis and Mount Sinai is when my husband and I married. And then we planned, we'll wait until after medical school for me and law school for him and residency. And because we have so much time, we're so young, we were children, right? So we said, we'll wait because we definitely want to have at least one child. And you think about when the perfect time is, and you think of all of the different reasons why that wonderful event should happen, but this is not the perfect time. And you think, and you think, and you think, there is no perfect time. The time is the time, right? And finally we said, we're getting old. If we're going to do this, we should do this. So it really was something that we thought about all the time, but finally said, we won't plan so much as Marilyn is saying. We really have to just think about what it is we want together and for our future with our child, and then it worked out.
Yeah, I think that is so true. You know, so after graduating from my residency, well, I met my husband in medical school, so we got married, and then his whole big question is, when do you have kids, right? You think and you plan, and but you know what? Certain things are not meant for planning. You should just let it happen. And so we just went and had kids. So it all worked out. But sometimes you just have to follow your heart and just feel what's right. And I have to say, you know, we're just so blessed, feel so blessed that we have our two boys, and because it really center you. When the kids were young, you just can't work too hard, because you know they're two souls, two human waiting for you to be, you know, to feed them and to bathe them. So you go home and take care of them. But now that we're empty nester and the kids are grown, sometimes we tend to overwork. You know, we just like, okay, well, you know, there's no one home, I can just get this done. And before you know it, it's like, oh my God, it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And kind of Dr. Pacer said, you know, we gotta still learn to balance ourselves and keep wellness in the, you know, center stage as well. So, yeah.
I never had a plan. my plan was survival. I really, it was just survival from, the time I was young till I got through high school and whatever. And then once I was in medical in Sophie Davis, and then after, when I went into residency, I was on my own. I was self-sufficient. I was independent. No one was helping me with money. And you know what? I wanted to have fun. And so I had fun. Residency was work, work, work. And then when I wasn't working, I was having fun with a group of friends and dating up the wazoo. I mean, there was no way that I was going to be married or have one person in my life until later on. And so that did not happen till way after residency. I didn't have kids really till I was in my 30s. So I just, I took the opportunity when I was young to really, as they say, play the field or, have fun. And then later on had the kids. And for me, that's what worked. So.
Thank you so much for all of your answers. Honestly, I was also another person who was thinking about family life planning during residency or during med school even. But like you said, it'll just happen. You don't have to always plan everything. So as president of the American Medical Association, I would just like to thank all of the speakers for coming tonight, all of the students for coming tonight. We would like to conclude the night with a little video that the American Medical Women's Association and Margaret Ambrosino have created, who is the director of the Alumni Relations. And we just created it to show our appreciation for the wonderful speakers that came tonight, and I hope everyone enjoys it. Mr. Kobir, if you would like to share the video. On behalf of Sophie Davis, the CUNY School of Medicine, and as president of the American Medical Women's Association, I'm proud to present this award to Dr. Xu Ling Leong, class of 1978.
Thank you so much. I accept this award with deep gratitude and thank CUNY School of Medicine for honoring me as a 2021 Strong Woman in Medicine. Best wishes to my fellow honorees and good luck to the Sophie Davis students in the upcoming match day. Thank you.
On behalf of Sophie Davis, the CUNY School of Medicine, and its student chapter of the American Medical Women's Association, I am so glad to have the honor to present this award to Dr. Anahi M. Ortiz, class of 1981.
I am incredibly proud and grateful to my alma mater, the CUNY School of Medicine, for honoring me today with the Strong Women in Medicine Award. And congratulations to my fabulous fellow honorees. Thank you.
On behalf of Sophie Davis, the CUNY School of Medicine, and the American Women's Medical Association, I am proud to present this award to Dr. Rosalind Schneider, class of 1984.
I'm incredibly grateful to receive this award, to have graduated from Sophie Davis, and to be among these strong, amazing women. Thank you so much.
On behalf of Sophie Davis, the CUNY School of Medicine, and its student chapter of the American Women Medical Association, I am honored to present this award to Dr. Marilyn Frazier.
Good evening. On behalf of the Arthur Ashe Institute for Urban Health, I would like to thank the CUNY School of Medicine, the Sophie Davis Undergraduate Program in Biomedical Education for this wonderful award. Congratulations also to my fellow esteemed honorees. Thank you.
Well, thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. Thank you to our 4 wonderful honorees. Thank you to the chapter of the American Medical Women's Association. They were incredibly helpful in getting this all organized. I hope everyone had a good time and enjoyed these inspiring presentations. We will continue to keep you all posted of our work, and we look forward to seeing you again online and eventually in person on campus. So good night to everyone. Thank you for joining us. Take care.